Have you ever noticed that the more you open up to family, the more tangled things get? You start off with good intentions, wanting to be honest, to stay close, to feel more connected. But somehow, the more you reveal, the less peace you seem to have. It's something many of us come to understand only after 65. And it's not because our families don't love us. Most do. It's because love, especially in family, is layered, complex, and rarely simple. With love comes expectations, opinions, and unspoken emotions. And when you start laying everything bare, you can unknowingly invite confusion, frustration, even judgment. I used to believe that being completely transparent was the key to closeness. I truly did. I thought, if I just shared everything, every worry, every thought, every plan, it would show trust, that it would pull us all closer. But time, and a few hard-earned lessons, taught me something else. Not every truth needs to be voiced, not because it's shameful, but because peace in this stage of life, real peace, is something worth guarding. It's a quiet kind of strength, the ability to hold certain things back not from secrecy, but from wisdom. So in this video, I just want to talk, not lecture, just talk, about 5 kinds of things I've learned are better kept close after 65. Not to isolate yourself, but to protect what you've built. Your dignity, your peace of mind, your right to enjoy these years without unnecessary interference. If you've ever walked away from a family dinner feeling drained after sharing too much, or found yourself thinking, I shouldn't have said that, then I hope this message feels like a warm hand on your shoulder. If you're new here, welcome. This is a space for seniors who want to navigate these next years with grace, calm, and quiet strength. Let's begin with the first one. Let's talk about your financial situation. Now I know we've all been told, don't leave your family in the dark. Be transparent, avoid surprises, and that's good advice to a point. We think if we lay everything out, our savings, our plans, our assets, it'll give our families peace of mind. That's what I thought too. But here's what no one tells you. Once you open that curtain fully, the dynamic starts to shift. Sometimes slowly, sometimes overnight. Let me share the story of Martin. He's 81 now, a retired engineer who lived modestly and managed his money wisely. One spring afternoon, thinking he was doing the right thing, Martin sat down with his 2 adult sons. He showed them everything, his accounts, his pension, even a spreadsheet of projected expenses and how he planned to divide what he had. He did it with good intentions. He wanted clarity, no surprises. But the response? Not what he expected. Instead of gratitude, there were questions. Lots of them. Dad, why are you still living alone in that big house? Shouldn't you consider assisted living before something happens? What's the plan if you need long-term care? One of them even offered to move in to help him manage things. Out of love, yes, but also out of subtle control. Over time, Martin realized that every small spending decision now came with commentary. Should you really be flying at your age? Is a new sofa necessary? Even a new pair of walking shoes sparked comments. And it wasn't that his sons didn't love him. They did. It was that suddenly they saw themselves as co-pilots in his life, not passengers. Martin told me later, quietly, that what hurt most wasn't the scrutiny. It was the feeling that he no longer had full control. That somehow, sharing his finances meant sharing his autonomy. And that's something no one warns you about. Even well-meaning family can overstep when the numbers are laid bare. And in tougher situations, people who never showed interest before suddenly become very attentive. Not to you, but to your money. A distant cousin dropping by for the first time in 10 years, a grandchild asking oddly specific questions about the will. I'm not saying don't plan ahead. Please do. A will, power of attorney, medical directives, these are crucial. But there's a difference between being prepared and putting your financial life on display before it's necessary. Privacy isn't secrecy, it's self-respect. You don't owe anyone an explanation for how you choose to spend what you've earned over decades of hard work. That vacation, that new recliner, that donation to a cause you believe in, if it brings you joy, that's reason enough. Protect your peace. Share when needed, not out of pressure. Because once your finances become family discussion, you may find yourself defending decisions that aren't anyone else's business. Now let's talk about health, another area where openness can sometimes backfire. It's normal, isn't it? Our bodies change, knees ache, sleep gets restless, and energy isn't always predictable. So when we mention these things, it feels like simple conversation. My back's been acting up again. I got a little dizzy the other day. We say it casually, maybe even with a little laugh. But here's the part we don't always think about. To our loved ones, those small mentions aren't casual. They sound alarms. They raise concern. And often, they prompt overreactions. Take Claire, for example. She's 76, widowed but as independent as they come. She gardens, volunteers, walks her terrier every morning. One day, after a weekend of yard work, she casually told her daughter over coffee that her shoulders were sore. Her daughter panicked, booked physical therapy, called twice a day, suggested hiring help around the house. What Claire meant as a passing comment became, in her daughter's mind, a warning sign. Suddenly, Claire was being treated differently. Maybe don't lift that. Are you sure you should drive after dark? And the independence Claire had protected so fiercely began to slip, not because she needed help, but because she'd accidentally invited worry. That's the subtle trap. When you share every minor health issue, you might be unintentionally shifting how your family sees you, from independent adult to fragile elder. That shift can be quiet, even loving, but it chips away at your sense of self. Now, of course, if you're facing something serious, your family should know. They deserve that transparency. But every ache, every restless night, you don't owe updates. You've lived in your body long enough to know what's a red flag and what's just a creaky morning. Trust that instinct. And trust that you don't need validation from others to know when you're okay. There's also an emotional toll. The more we talk about what's wrong, the more we start to see ourselves through that lens. It's like our lives get reduced to symptoms and side effects instead of routines, joy, and wisdom. You are more than your back pain. You are more than your blood pressure readings. You're a full human being with stories, laughter, preferences, and victories, however small, every single day. This isn't about bottling things up. Talk to your doctor. Take care of yourself. But with family, be intentional. Ask yourself, am I sharing because I need support? Or am I creating a narrative I never meant to? Peace in these years doesn't come from being fussed over. It comes from knowing who you are, choosing what matters, and speaking when the moment calls for it, not when habit or guilt nudges you to explain yourself. Now let's touch on something many of us have struggled with. Family arguments. When kids argue, when siblings don't speak, when someone's upset and no one's quite sure why. There's often a tug to step in, to help, to fix. After all, we're the elders, the ones with experience. We think, if we just say the right thing, we can ease the tension. But here's the truth I've come to understand, the hard way. Silence in family matters isn't weakness, it's wisdom. I'll tell you about Miriam. She's 80 now, part of my walking group, and one of the wisest women I know. During a visit with her daughter, she gently suggested that her grandson, 5 years old at the time, could start picking up his toys after playtime. Just a suggestion. Kind voice. Smiling face. But her daughter didn't see it that way. The mood shifted. Calls became rare. Invitations stopped. And the relationship never quite returned to what it was. Miriam had meant to help, but her words, though softly spoken, were heard through the filter of emotion. They were received as judgment, as interference. That's the danger of stepping into family tensions, even with the best of intentions. Because here's the truth no one likes to admit. When you speak during conflict, you risk becoming the symbol of that conflict. Even if your words are kind, even if your intention is pure. People don't always remember what was said. They remember how they felt when it was said. And if they were already feeling defensive, vulnerable, or ashamed, your words, no matter how gentle, can land like a hammer. You could try to smooth things over between your children, and suddenly one thinks you're taking sides. You might comment on your daughter-in-law's parenting and find your son growing quiet for weeks. You might even say something completely reasonable about someone's poor decisions with money, and end up being blamed when resentment starts to brew. In their eyes, you're not neutral anymore. You're involved, and that involvement can isolate you. So what do you do instead? You become the still point, the calm in the center of the storm. You become the one who listens more than you speak. And if you must say something, make it simple, steady, and non-intrusive. I trust you all to figure it out. Or, I love you all too much to take sides. And then you back away, not in defeat, but in strength. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stay out of the fire, even when everything inside you wants to run in and throw water. Because at this point in life, peace isn't just precious, it's sacred. And it's not always your job to mediate. You've lived through enough family squabbles and reconciliations to know they come and go. Your role now is to be a source of quiet steadiness, not another log on the fire. It's not about giving up. It's about growing up enough to choose where you spend your energy. And sometimes, not getting involved is the greatest gift you can give, both to them and to yourself. Now let's shift from family conflict to something even quieter, but often heavier. Regret. At this stage in life, regret has a way of sneaking into the room. It doesn't always knock. It just shows up while you're washing dishes or looking out the window. You remember the trip you didn't take, the letter you never sent, the career path you hesitated to follow, the person you lost touch with, the opportunity that came and went. And sometimes, we speak these regrets aloud to the people we love. Not to make them feel guilty, but to reflect, to share something true, maybe even as a lesson. But here's where it gets tricky. What we offer as personal reflection, our family might receive as disappointment. Let me tell you about Norma. She's 79, a retired school teacher with a lifetime of love and service behind her. She raised 4 kids, supported a husband through years of illness, and kept her home steady through good and bad. One afternoon, she and her youngest daughter were walking through a park when Norma quietly said, "Sometimes I wish I had traveled more when I was younger." Just a thought. A sigh, really. But her daughter took it hard. She later confessed that it made her feel like her mother had missed out because of hers, that the sacrifices Norma made had somehow been a mistake, that maybe the family wasn't enough. That's the hidden impact of regret when spoken too freely. What you mean as a moment of honesty might be heard as a message of disappointment. It's not your fault. It's not even theirs. It's just how emotions work. When you say, "I wish I had kept working longer," they might hear, "Raising you wasn't fulfilling." When you say, "I should have moved somewhere else," they might hear, "Our home wasn't good enough." And on top of that, too many spoken regrets can change how people see you. They may start treating you as someone stuck in the past, someone whose best days are behind them, even when you don't feel that way at all. So here's what I've learned. You're allowed to have regrets. You've earned the right to feel the full weight of your journey. But not every regret needs to be shared. Not because it's shameful, but because it's sacred. Some truths are meant to be honored quietly. They can live in your heart, shaped into wisdom that guides your days. You can acknowledge your what-ifs without turning them into burdens for your children to carry. Instead of saying, "I wish I'd done things differently," try saying, "I've learned so much from the life I lived." That one phrase carries peace. It offers insight without blame, growth without sorrow, love without apology. This isn't about sugarcoating your past. It's about choosing how your story is told. You are still the author of your narrative, and when you speak with grace, others hear it. Not as regret, but as a beautiful kind of wisdom only time can give. Now we come to the last one. The fifth and final secret worth protecting. Your plans for your assets. This is a sensitive one. We've all heard the advice, don't leave your family guessing. Make your wishes known. And that's true. Legally and logistically, yes, your affairs should be in order. But here's what they don't tell you. The details of your plans, who gets what, how things will be divided, can cause more harm than good when shared too soon or too openly. Take Edna. She's 83, a retired nurse with 3 grown children, a loving mother, practical, generous. Wanting to avoid any future confusion, she sat her children down and explained her plans. Who would get the house, how the savings would be divided, even which heirlooms would go to whom. It seemed like the right thing to do. But within weeks, the energy changed. Her middle son, once carefree, began calling with suggestions about when to sell the house. Her daughter, who'd moved away years ago, wondered aloud why she wasn't receiving more, given her sacrifices. And her youngest? He grew quiet, clearly uncomfortable but obviously hurt. Edna told me, her voice low and heavy, "I felt like they started looking at what I was leaving behind, not at me." That's the risk. Once you share your estate plans, even with love, you might awaken comparison, expectation, competition, not always openly, but subtly. Tension that wasn't there before begins to brew, and you feel it, even if no one says it out loud. Even your daily choices might come under quiet scrutiny. Why are you spending money on a cruise now? Why buy new furniture if you're planning to sell? Shouldn't you be leaving more for the grandkids? That pressure? It's not imaginary. It's real. And it can take away something precious, your freedom. The freedom to enjoy what you've built, to make decisions based on joy, not guilt. Let me be clear, you still need a legally sound estate plan, a clear will, a power of attorney, someone you trust to carry out your wishes. That's just being responsible. But you do not need to narrate your choices in real time. You don't owe anyone a preview of your will. Your generosity is not a group project. It's your decision. Because here's the truth. Your legacy isn't a number. It's not measured in square footage or account balances. Your real legacy is how you made people feel, the time you spent, the values you lived by, the steadiness you offered when life got shaky. And if someone only calls when money is on the table, that says more about them than it does about you. So protect your plans, not because you're hiding something, but because you've earned the right to peace. The kind of peace that lets you enjoy these years without questions hanging in the air or eyes watching your every purchase. As we close this conversation, I want to leave you with one thought, something I hope lingers long after the video ends. You've spent your life giving support, giving advice, giving care, giving comfort. But now is your time to protect something just as valuable, your peace. Peace isn't just a quiet moment. It's the freedom to be yourself without explanation, to make choices that serve your well-being, to say no, to hold boundaries, to keep sacred what feels private. It's not about building walls, it's about choosing what stays inside the garden. So ask yourself, right now, what parts of my story are better held close? Not because I'm ashamed, but because I finally understand their worth. And if this message resonated with you, I invite you to share just one thing in the comments. One truth you're choosing to keep for yourself from now on. Your voice may help someone else realize they're not alone in wanting peace too. And if this felt like a conversation you needed, you're not alone. There's more where this came from. Join our community of thoughtful, wise souls who know that peace in this chapter of life isn't luck, it's a choice. Subscribe if you haven't already, and drop your city in the comments. We'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Until next time, take care of your heart, take care of your mind, and never forget, you've earned your peace.